You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your charmingly entertaining host, and with me, as always, is my partner,
Rocco. And let me tell you, folks, I'm more charming than he is.
What? No one thinks you're charming. And you know how I can tell? Because people have made me force you to listen to the engineering joke of the week. That's how I know you're not charming. You ready for your non-charming engineering joke, Rocco?
Sure.
All right. Ready? Why are hydraulic engineers always so calm?
Why?
Because they're really good at handling pressure. Huh? Just when you think I can't make those any worse, each week I manage to go to a new low. Oh, terrible jokes. All right, folks, we have a first-time guest on the show today, Steve Hathaway, who is the founder of Construction Software Solutions, is here to talk to us about ERP systems and why you need them for the construction world. So, Steve, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a good Friday afternoon, and looking forward to having a good conversation with both you, Jim, and Rocco. And Rocco, I think you may be a little more charming.
See, you see what happens? Rocco just suckers. You'll find out soon enough. Rocco's not at all charming. Don't kiss up to him. You don't need to be nice to him, Steve. Unnecessary. All right, I tell you what, folks. Before we jump into the ERP world, let's learn a little bit about Steve and his company and what he's doing there. So, Steve, what can you tell our listeners about CSS and kind of what prompted you to start it?
Yeah, kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it fairly quick here. And that is, basically, I've been in construction my entire life. I actually started as a laborer way back and moved all the way up to chief financial officer of a $400 million heavy civil contractor. And when I was there, we were using various pieces of software and kind of looking at the technology and what we were trying to do, how we were trying to integrate systems and bring data together, and realized that after Acumatica came into the space back in 2016, that it was just such a different set of tools, a different set of technology compared to what had been in the industry for my entire career, that I actually quit my CFO job to go start CSS and work exclusively with a different ERP than I had spent the last 20 years on, something brand new being Acumatica. Because, again, it really came down to technology and where it looked like it was going to be able to go in the future versus what I had been working with my entire career. So,
nice. Yeah, that's a big risk to take, but obviously it's working for you, so that's a beautiful thing. All right, so, Enterprise Resource Planning, all right, or ERP, for those of you who don't know the acronym we're throwing around today. ERP systems, they're talked about in the business world all the time. And I have found, just from talking with folks, that they're very loosely defined in terms of, what they do and don't do, right? We're not sure of it. For a lot of us, right, the ERP, it's just kind of a giant catch-all term for, a big software that we're not always completely comfortable with. Right, and don't always understand what it's meant to do or what it's meant to be. And Steve is here to talk to us about what an ERP system really is, what it can do, and which systems he thinks brings the best features to the construction world. So Steve, let's start with that ERP ecosystem. How do you define ERP and where do those fit into the construction world, do you think?
Yeah, so ERP is, as you mentioned, enterprise resource planning, right? But it's probably it's a very loose definition, as you said. And really in the construction space, it kind of falls into accounting and finance, and then getting into payroll, AP, and then you branch off from there. It's like, oh, well, maybe you could add HR to it, or maybe you could add project management to it, or maybe you can add warehouse management, inventory control, service management. It grows as you need it to, but it's all one solution that you're kind of building within one platform, which makes it that much easier to get reporting out of it because all your data resides in one place. Now, there are thousands, it feels like thousands of point solutions out there in the market, and they certainly have their place too. They absolutely do. So this is not really to say that ERP is the solution for everybody, because it's not. Point solutions are great, and smaller contractors especially, because the smaller you are, I mean, if you're a $2 million contractor, you're pretty unlikely to have a built-out ERP system because it costs money. It's expensive. But they tend to use those point solutions. And the point solutions work really well because they do one thing, they do it really well, and you just get the point solutions you need. You go out and you buy all these different softwares that you need. But as you grow, you start to realize it's like, oh, I need reporting that branches across 2 or 3 point solutions, or I need data entry to be consistent across my organization in certain areas. So I can't have 3 different point solutions to solve a problem, because now I've got different sets of security. I've got different user interfaces. I've got data in different places with point solutions. So as you grow, people tend to migrate more towards the ERP system. And honestly, in the construction space, there's a lot of both, where they're kind of in that, I don't know, $20 million to $200 million range, where they can't afford a full-blown like Oracle Financials ERP system that does everything that you'd have if you were like a $2 or $3 billion contractor. So you end up with this kind of middle market area where you get a less expensive ERP, like Acumatica, but then you integrate it to some point solutions. You don't have as many as you used to have because you start to move those into the ERP system, but you may have things like project management, scheduling, things like that are still outside the ERP system and just tightly integrated. So again, point solutions have their place, absolutely, when you need something that does one specific feature and it does it quick and you don't have a big learning curve and you just need to get into it. Again, fits really well as you're a smaller organization, but then as you grow and you need to get more credibility to your data, more reliable data, and data in one place for reporting and security and all that, you tend to gravitate towards the ERP. So again, that was kind of a long-winded answer. I hope it gave you what you needed.
It did. So, no, I think it's a solid answer. Okay. And I agree with you, right? A lot of it is about size, right? And there is no one answer for everybody. It's about finding what's right for your company. So Rocco, let's wake you up over there, Mr. Charming. We do a lot of consulting work for construction clients, right, on their digital technologies and their point tech. How many of them are actively using right now, or at least starting to pursue an ERP system for their company?
Yeah, it's right in line with what we were just saying. I mean, if you're a smaller firm, you're going to work with a point solution. It comes down to cost, right? A small firm can't afford it, and they don't need, all that power that comes in an ERP. As you grow, you need it. I mean, you can't be picking up pieces from one piece of software to another. It gets to a point where, okay, there's a better platform, and we can afford a better platform. But so it all depends on the size, and of course here at Zentech we work with firms of all different sizes.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we met Steve in some conversations around integrating a point solutions with for a client with Acumatica, which he's referred to a few times here already for a few of our clients. And we quickly found out that, Steve is, the man in that space, right? With just a ton of knowledge around ERPs in general and Acumatica in particular. And it really is a very impressive system, right? And Steve's company CSS really specializes in it. So I figure I'm going to let Steve explain it to us instead of me fumbling my way through it. So Steve, right? I know you have partnered with other ERP systems in the past, but now you are focusing very heavily on Acumatica, right? So I guess the question is, why? Why Acumatica? What does it do that drew so much attention from you?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I have worked with a number of different ERP systems throughout my career, and I hate to say how long my career is, but I've been in construction for over 40 years, so it's been a while. But so have a lot of ERP systems that are in construction. They've been there for 40 years too. Some of them started in 1976.
Yeah.
So, others, like big ones, I can think of like 1981. There was a lot of them that came around in the late 70s and early 80s, and they've just kind of grown up in the construction market. But Acumatica is fairly new. I mean, they came in 2016, and well, at first I was a little hesitant. It's like, oh, who are you guys? And I kind of watched them from a distance. You'd see them at trade shows. You'd see them out in the market every now and then. But then once I started to really learn about their system, it was the technology. And it was the technology that separated them from the other systems, being that they were current. I mean, I'm trying to think. One of the things I really liked about them was the fact that they had never not been browser-based. They didn't grow up on a green screen or DOS or Windows. They were always, from day one, out in a browser. And all of their different workspaces all integrated together. They were all built by the same company. They weren't acquired by the ERP company from other point solutions. They grew organically, basically. But when you look at ERPs systems out in the construction space, they all kind of do the same thing. They really do. I mean, they all do job costs, they all do payroll, they all say they integrate to X, Y, and Z platforms, but it was the technology that made Acumatica stand apart because it was so easy to configure. If you wanted to create new screens, new data tables, if you wanted to create an entire new module, you could. I mean, it's wide open, and you can go in there and basically develop within it inside the platform, so that if you are a third party product, and like say for tax calculations or something, to calculate sales tax, then you can actually exist inside the Acumatica platform instead of being outside, which gives the user a seamless experience that even if there are third party products, a lot of them exist right inside with the same user experience, same user interface, same security. You don't know from a user perspective that you're actually running third-party software when you're in it. It's all just together. So that technology being so configurable. And then I'd say also a couple other things on that. The pricing. The pricing
is always good. Everybody wants to hear about that.
Unlimited users. It's unlimited users. So as you grow as a business, you don't have to add more users. Or if you have a superintendent that is out in the field that needs one report once a month, they log in once a month, or maybe they log in to approve invoices once a week, you don't need to worry about spending $7,000 a user to let them do that. You don't have to sit and think about that because it's unlimited. So frankly, if you wanted to add your subcontractors or your owners or engineers into the system and secure them down to where they just see what they need for their work, you can do that too. It's unlimited users. So once you get into the model of it's unlimited users, people start to add more and more functionality, more and more users, more and more people that they never thought needed ERP access into their system, which makes getting data to and from end users faster and more efficient. And the other thing is the scalability. I mentioned earlier a contractor that was roughly $2 million. We actually have clients that do $2 million a year, where they have one person in the office, and it'll be like the owner's wife in there managing the books, right? And she'll be in there doing all the accounting for one user for a $2 million contractor. But there's also contractors that are $2 billion running Acumatica. So if you get in it, you don't have to worry about outgrowing it, because you can easily just scale from 2 million to 10 million to 100 million to $1 billion all the way through, because it's that configurable. So
yeah, that's pretty impressive. So I tell you, kind of what we were saying earlier, right? I mean, in the construction space, we all have the option of either using a bunch of different systems, right, that are focused on like every different aspect of your projects, or you can opt for an ERP system. And there's a lot of discussion I've heard people have on which is better, right? An all-in-one solution or a bunch of smaller specialized packages that you can configure to talk to each other. And Zentech, we do a lot of work with the latter, right? Configuring those smaller systems together. But I'm guessing, based on what Steve's talking about today, he's leaning toward the former, the ERP structure. So Steve, look, there are so many construction point solutions on the market. Do you have a preference over like which one of those makes the biggest impact on a project?
absolutely. Can I say an actual brand, or can I just
knock yourself out? We're
okay.
agnostic here.
Okay, I didn't know. So yeah, so really, I fall into the ones that make the biggest impact is project management, whether it's Procore, Autodesk Construction Cloud, whichever one you tend to lean towards. But those products are built with the end user in mind, and that end user is typically somebody with an engineering background who is out building something. So you may have civil engineers, you may have construction managers, but they kind of have that mindset, and those products work really well with that mindset. Where ERP systems all kind of came out of the accounting world, and accountants do not think like engineers. So the software that you see for accountants has a certain look and feel to it that doesn't really appeal to people out on projects, and that's fair. So therefore, you tend to see a lot of project management systems integrated tightly with the ERP systems. Now, I would say we have done some sneaky things in the past where you can actually take the screens from either Autodesk or Procore or even Acumatica and take the screens that you see in those systems and place them inside the other products. So you can take like a Procore screen and display it inside Acumatica so that people think they're in Acumatica, but they're really in Procore, or the other way around. So you have people in the field where you can put the Acumatica screens for like the financial data into the Procore world so that they are seeing actual Acumatica screens, even though they're in Procore. So there's things you can do that way. But really it goes back to project management definitely has made the biggest impact. And the other thing, I mean, there's systems out there too with point solutions, and this is part of the reason why I don't necessarily like point solutions as you grow, because we had a client we were working with a couple of years ago that they had a time capture system, and they had maybe 200 employees, and they had a time capture system that was costing them $125,000 a year just to do time capture. Oof. And it was a subscription. And it was like, really? You're spending, in 8 years, you're going to spend $1 million on this system that you're using just to capture time and bring it in. That's it. It didn't do anything else for them. It actually did. It was a very large product, but they were only using it for time capture. And it's like, you have a lot of different systems, and you're spending a lot of money, and maybe it's time to, at that size, when you're that big, to start bringing some of that stuff together so that you don't have all these different systems.
Yeah, solid point. Yeah, and like I agree with you. I think those project management systems, right, are obviously the way. And like I was saying earlier, for the listeners, that's kind of how we met Steve. We're here at Zentech. We do Procore and Autodesk Construction Cloud. We're certified partners with both, and we were looking to integrate it with Acumatica. So that's how we kind of met. So yeah, I like that. Those are really powerful systems, and I think they integrate really well with those bigger ERPs, the good ones. All right, I tell you what, folks, let's take a break so we can hear from today's sponsor. And when we get back, I want to talk about the practical use of ERP systems in construction to kind of help us control both construction data and project costs. All right, so stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Hey guys, it's Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants, and we want to talk to you guys about our managed contact or construction technology services that we offer here at Zentech. Look, we're all working with a million different software systems. We're all trying to integrate them and get them to communicate and collaborate and work together. And you know what? The answer isn't always more software. That usually just brings more headaches. What we try to do is work with you as your managed construction technology service provider to help you integrate and develop all the software systems and workflow processes that you need using the software that you already have. We can help you guys with your project management, estimating, ERP systems, just about any workflow that you have to help it all work together and get your folks working the way you need them to. So let's start that conversation. So Rocco, how do people reach out to us and get the ball rolling with our contact services?
Yeah, hit up our website, zentechconsultants.net. If you go under the services section, you'll be able to see those services listed there. You could always give us a call, 866-824-4459, or drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
There you go. All the construction technology management help that you need but have not been able to find or afford is just a single phone call away with Managed Contact Services by Zentech Consultants. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking with Steve Hathaway of CSS today about ERP systems and why they are so important in the construction space. And in this half of the program, I really wanted to talk more about kind of the practical benefits that you can see from implementing ERP systems like Acumatica into your business. So Steve, right? Everybody talks about the benefits of tech to the construction world, but what do you see as kind of like the core accounting, finance benefits of a well-developed ERP system for a construction firm?
Yes, so there's a number of different things here, and we'll kind of start with the construction company and operations within the company, but then I actually want to talk a little about banking and surety and bonding and all that finance stuff that the people on the operation side seldom see. So to start off, I want to say ERP systems give you basically efficiency of processes because you have ideally one system that is managing every part of your business. Now, in reality, as I was saying, that $20 to $200 million contractor isn't going to get to that. You're going to have other systems, absolutely. But the more you can get into the ERP, the more efficient you can become because you have a bigger and bigger system with the same security setup, the same users, the same user interface, data that seamlessly flows between different modules without having to worry about integrating things. So the efficiency from a data collection, perhaps collecting time out in the field, all the way to running payroll, to getting it into job costs and presenting that data back is seamless because it's all one system. And that gives you the ability to, I guess, create more reliable data, to put more, would you say, bumpers on people's roles within the business that they can only do X or only do Y because they're in a system with a very extensive security feature set that allows you to really restrict where they can go and what they can do. You can validate the data when it comes in. So when you're collecting data, say out in the field, that it's being validated against data that's in the ERP to say, oh, that job number that you just keyed in is an actual job number, yes, or that cost code is an actual cost code. And if somebody in accounting creates a new cost code, that you immediately see it in the field because it's all one system. And you can do all those things in your construction organization. That's great. But I was actually talking to a banker, it had to be about 3 months ago. And we were talking about some prospects that we both had that were running QuickBooks, which is not an ERP system. It's more an accounting system, right? And again, this was down market, so they were smaller contractors. And it was interesting to hear what she, as a banker in the construction space, because that's all she does is bank with construction companies, that she said that when the bank, her bank, looks at you as a construction company and you are running QuickBooks, that they consider you to be a mom and pop organization and they don't really take you seriously.
Yeah.
She said, when you go on to ERP, the bank, their bank again, looks at you as now you've made it, you are real, and you are also taking your business seriously. So therefore, the bank will give you a higher credit limit, and the surety will give you better bonding ability because you just present yourself as being more invested in your business, more, that you want to grow your business, that you are trying to do things right. And I found that quite fascinating, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had never really thought of it from that standpoint.
That. Yeah, so if you want to grow your business, you could be the same company with the same financial statement, but in her eyes anyway, if you're on a real ERP system versus just an accounting system, that bank will give you a higher credit limit just for that. I'm like, that's fascinating. So if you want to grow your business, ERP is a way to get started. So
solid, interesting. So, I think look, listeners of this podcast, you guys all know that I am always, on just about every episode, preaching about the necessity of good processes being in place rather than throwing more technology at your problems, right? Tech is a tool, and it's a really powerful one. But if you don't match it up with good process, it can actually become more of a hindrance than a help. And I tell people all the time, right? Think of it like giving a Formula One car to your Uber driver. Look, the tech is still amazing, but if you don't have the right setup and training, the end result is going to be a disaster. You don't want to be in that car. So Steve, I mean, what would you recommend for people in terms of best practices, I guess, right, and processes for controlling construction costs that would need to be addressed as part of an ERP implementation or rollout?
Yes, I want to answer that in two parts because I want to address the first part too, where you talk about tech as a tool, and but if you don't have processes, that it doesn't really help you. And there's a story. I have a story for everything, so I'm sorry.
I'm the same way. I've always got stories.
Okay, so we're working with not a client, more of a prospect. They wanted us to come in and look at their systems, and they had. This company bought everything known to man. If it's in the construction space, they bought it because they thought, like you mentioned, that the answer was technology, that it wasn't really so much process, that if I buy this software, it will solve all my problems. And then they'd go buy another software and another software. And we were there for 3 weeks in their office trying to understand all the systems they had and how their data flowed from this solution to that solution to back out to the field. I mean, all the integrations they had. And while we were there in those 3 weeks trying to determine what they were using to help them get rid of some of this software, while we were there for 3 weeks, they bought 3 more systems.
Oh, God.
So,
it's a consultant's nightmare.
It is. But anyway, so that was just the story, kind of a sidebar, but it's just fascinating because people do think that technology is the answer. And like you said, it's processes. You got to have processes. So how do you control your costs in the best method? And again, this gets down to processes. and to break down what you do in the field into relative cost codes. But everybody in construction kind of does cost codes. Some people do it right, a lot don't. And when you're breaking down your cost into cost codes, that you need to break it down into measurable, repeatable actions so that you can accurately compare what you're doing on job A versus job B, even though those two jobs may be totally different in terms of the work that is being accomplished. The individual pieces of work can overlap. You may have the same activity or two on job A that you have on job B, and those need to be identical on the cost code, tracked with the same units, the same unit of measure, so that you can see your productivity on those cost codes. You can see variations between job A and job B, where maybe job A had slightly different field conditions than job B, and your productivity may have slipped because of it, but you need to be able to compare between those jobs, at least individual pieces, these small incremental pieces to the productivity, so that you can determine how those job conditions affected your productivity. And then, and here's where everybody forgets, it's not the project management needs that. I mean, they can run their job without that detail, and they can manage their cost on the project without all that detail. And it's not that accounting needs it, because accounting, they really don't care to that level. They just want to know if the job's making money or not. The people who need it is estimating.
Yeah.
You have to break it down into a repeatable action that with measurable units, measurable productivity, so you can give it back to estimating, so that estimating can bid better next time. That they're always improving, this constant loop. Estimating puts out an estimate, you track it in measurable pieces that flows back to estimating, so that they can bid the next, perhaps different type of work, but some similar activities, and bid the next one, and know that it's going to be continuous improvement on estimating and the data collection, and that the data is consistent across all your projects.
Yeah. I could not agree with you more. We see that all the time. You have companies who are just like, we've been bidding and estimating the same way for 30 years. And then they don't understand why they're not winning more jobs. Why are we always, why are we always running behind? Why are we over budget? Why does the time take so long? Because you're not learning, right? What's the definition of insanity, right? Performing the same exact steps and expecting different results each time. It's the most valuable step that you can take in your jobs is getting that data collected and doing a postmortem and seeing what was the variable, what made this one work better than that one.
And with that, I'm going to keep going, because you're right. And what I've seen so many contractors do is try to lump things together in their estimates and not break it out into as much detail. And okay, that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is when they are doing their monthly forecasted cost to complete, which hopefully they're doing. If that is a new set of words to anyone in the audience, then we need to talk, because you're really at risk. But forecasting your cost to complete, where I've seen contractors who lump so much work together into one cost code, like, oh, we have a single cost code to build this entrance to the parking lot. Okay, what does that mean? Build the entrance to the parking lot? Well, yeah, we're going to put in some asphalt and some curbs, and I think I can do that for $1 million. That's my cost to complete. And every single time when they say they can get it done for $1 million, they're always wrong.
Yep.
Because they didn't look at it in as much detail. It's like, wait, I have to excavate I have to do rough grading, and then I got to grade for the curbs, then I have to pour the curbs, then I've got to grade for the asphalt, then I've got to put aggregate in, and then I've got to grade the aggregate. And when you add up all those little pieces, and when you break it down like that in your cost structure, and you forecast it every month for cost to complete, and you have it in that detail, I guarantee you could not get that done for $1 million, and you will always come in at like $1.3 million.
Yep.
Because people tend to forget about 30% of the detail when they just lump things together and it's like, oh yeah, I can do that for $1 million. No, you can't. So it's
absolutely the case.
Along those lines, I mean, the risk that comes with that. The contract a couple of years ago, they lost $8 million. I mean, they were a $40 million contractor. They lost $8 million in 1 year because they didn't have their cost codes broken out in detail. They were doing exactly what I was just saying, where they lumped everything together. They lost $8 million, and okay, they lost $8 million. No, it's not that they lost $8 million. It's that they lost $8 million and they didn't know it.
Yeah.
They didn't know they lost $8 million. And then the next thing you know, they're out of business.
Yeah, losing $8 million, that'll do it to you.
Yeah, that did it. On a $40 million contractor, it put them under.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that, like I said, I think that goes back to what we were saying, right? The importance of the process and planning it all out and the details. You know, it's not just the software, right? There are plenty of softwares that can track your cost codes. You've got to develop the process of what you need to track, how it needs to be tracked, who's going to be responsible for tracking it, and then what are you going to do with the information once it's been tracked? That process. It's always about process. So Rocco, let me ask you, right? So you talk a lot with all of our clients, right? Do you still see a lot of clients who think that software is an answer in and of itself, or more of them coming to realize what we're talking about are the importance of process development first?
Yeah, it's process, and you know, with time, I think we're all seeing that software is not cheap right now. Everybody's shifted to the annual license structure, and you know, so having software solutions left and right is not the answer, because that just increases your costs even more. And trying to find people that know all these different software packages is not easy either, in light of the shortages that we see. So process is definitely key, and simplicity too, right? That's certainly important.
Simple is good.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, and I'd say too there, Rocco, with that, the people, as you mentioned, they tend to think that software is the solution because they don't know the process. And this isn't a knock on the individuals. It's just, I mean, we deal with a lot of people in the construction industry who haven't been in it that long. I mean, they've been in it for 5 years or so, and they've only worked at 1 or 2 companies, and that's all they've ever seen. So for them to know what the process really should be really depended on whether those few companies they worked at actually had a process that made sense and was accurate in itself. So you can't really put it on the people to know the process. So the people tend to expect the software to give them the process, but then they don't really want to adapt to it sometimes. They're like, oh, the software won't change to my needs. And it's like, no, are your needs accurate, or are you trying to do something that's totally different than the industry norm?
Yep.
And that's where companies like Zentek and CSS, that's where we come in, because we come in and hopefully to train them in terms of best process, and not only to train them, but to explain to them why. Yeah. Why is it done this way? And here's the reasoning, and that's why all the software out there does it this way, but you need to understand the why before you really get into it. So that's our
absolutely. Yeah. That's where consultants thrive. That's our niche. It's where we live. All right. So, I guess, another big aspect of construction that we talk about a lot on this show is data control. No other industry deals with as much raw data as construction does. All right. And it's varied across so many different processes. Coordinating it and making good use of it, it's a major struggle, right? We talk about, costs and schedules and bids and change orders and specs and drawings and contracts and a million other things. It's just an absolutely insane blend of data coming from 1,000 different sources, right? And they're going to be different results on every single job that you do. It's absolutely imperative to try and get a handle on all of that data. So, Steve, this is a big part of ERPs in general, right? So, where do you see construction data systems going in the future?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
We don't ask the easy ones here.
There's just going to be more and more and more. And no matter how much you try to integrate it, and no matter how much you try to data warehouse it or data lakes or all this stuff so that you can do BI on it and AI on it and all this stuff, there's just more and more and more, and it's actually coming in faster than people can consolidate it. So you're getting more and more siloed data. There are more and more integrations. Those integrations are getting better. They are much better because even today than they were 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, when you said integration, you had to go hire somebody to write code for a month. And that gave you an integration, where now a lot of integrations are put in a username, put in a password, maybe put in a key of some sort, and you're integrated. As things have moved to the cloud, the integrations have become much easier, and the ability to pass data back and forth has become much easier, which then leads to better data, because if you can pass data between systems, that means that you can get data to the end user when they're entering, like, I don't know, I'll go back to somebody in the field entering a daily report or something, that the data that they're entering is being validated against a system that maybe isn't the system they're using. So, for instance, go back to Autodesk Construction Cloud. If they're doing data entry into that, but it needs to go look up a cost code or a job number or an employee out of the ERP system, that even though they're using ACC, that it can not only just validate against its own data, but ACC can reach over to the ERP system and pull out that data for validation and pass it on to the end user, so that you, once again, are getting back to what you should be doing, and that is validating data at the source, so that data can't get into a workflow that you know is going to blow up at the end of the workflow, that isn't accurate, that isn't validated. So you try to validate everything at the source, and as you get better integrations, you're able to validate from systems that are more than one hop away. So you're going to get better data in the system, you're going to have more data, and then when you bring it all in, you end up with, we're starting to see artificial intelligence now for abnormality tracking, which really identifies when data comes into the system that is not in the normal flow, where maybe somebody did get something in that, even though it may have been validated, it just looks weird, it looks wrong, and it can flag it and just say, hey, you've entered XYZ for the past 3 days on your daily reports, and today you entered 1, 2, 3 instead of XYZ. Why did you do that? And it can raise its hand and say, are you sure that's right? So that you're getting accurate data in at the source, because that's the easiest time to change it.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So, all right, that's valid. So I tell you what, as I always do, when we have a guest on, I like to give them the last word on the show, right? So they can address some issue or other that I didn't think to ask them about, whether it's on the day's topic or really anything related that they think, the listeners should know about. So, Steve, I'll throw that at you, right? What else do you think our listeners should be thinking about in this area?
Yeah, I would say when you're running your construction business, what is the only system in your business that gets audited? And that's the ERP system. It's the only one. When you're trying to do your annual audits for your financial statements, to again, prove to the bank that you're worthy of your credit limit, prove to the surety that you're worthy of your $50 million bonding capacity, and that you're trying to get up to $60 million so you can grow your business. There is only one system in the whole suite of products at your construction company that gets audited, and that's your ERP system. So the more data you can get in there, the more credible you become. So
that's a very valid point. I hadn't really considered that, but you're absolutely dead on with that. Interesting.
I think that's the chief financial officer coming out in me here.
Yeah. But it's so vitally important,
having to live it, right?
Yeah. I mean, how do you expand your horizons and get the funding that you need and the resources and the investments that you have to grow to the bigger jobs without that.
Yeah.
So it's not just about process and where it's about operating your business effectively too.
Yep.
Valid points. Cool.
So.
All right. So thanks for that. All right. I tell you what, folks. With that, we're going to call it a day. But before we go, I want to thank Steve, for taking the time out of his busy schedule here, and Skip going out for the beer on this Friday afternoon when I know he's beat. And I hope that Rocco didn't scare you off like he's done to all of our other guests, and that you'll come back and talk to us more in the future, Steve. Thank you. Appreciate you being here, man.
Appreciate the invitation. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Outstanding.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, folks, we're going to get out of here, but we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all.